Hello guys, welcome back to Drill's Point. Now we are in the mid of video lecture. We are discussing about application development for Android. So now in the previous lecture we saw about list view, and we know that list view actually comes from the adapter view itself. Now the similar is the case with the grid view. As we know that grid is a two-dimensional two-dimensional scrolling grid. It's something like this. It's having elements placed in this particular order. Now to insert some element into the grid, you also need the adapter itself. The adapter actually helps you to add the element in a grid. The best part about grid is that it is actually here it has elements both in a row and column order, making it easier to adapt or add more elements to a grid rather than a list. Grid view also comes from the adapter view. Both list view and grid view are coming from the same superclass. Now let's see what are the parameters that are there in a grid view, or what are the attributes of grid view. The very first attribute being the ID. ID is a small representation of the uniqueness of a grid view available. Then after this we are having the column width. Column width defines that what should be the width of all the columns that are available in your application. We mention it in either in PX or in DP or in SP or in IN or in MM. After this we are having gravity. Gravity defines that we need to specify the gravity within the each cell, that where this cell or where the element of the cell should be placed. After this we mention the horizontal spacing. It's actually the spacing, it's actually mentions the spacing between the columns, the space that is available between the columns. Then is num column. We actually here tell that how many elements or how many columns should be there in a particular row in a list view. It either requires an integer value or even an autofit value can also work in this case. There is a stretch mode. It says that if there is any empty space available in the screen, which column should actually utilize that space. This property actually comes in from the table layout also. It's also there in the table layout, wherein if there was some space available, then we had mentioned a column which can actually use that space. So we mentioned the column that we want to give. And after this is the vertical spacing. It defines the spacing between the rows. Like if there are two rows parallelly, then how much space should be there between the dividing of two rows. So now let's see how actually we add a grid view in our application. We open up our Android Studios, we create a new application. After that we come to the activity main.xml. Here we add a grid view. After adding a grid view, we go to the main activity.java. Here we either we get a string array, and then we get a new array adapter. We initialize the array adapter using the constructor. Then we set that adapter in our grid view. After this, our grid view is working fine, and now we can use the grid view. So these things we would be discussing in our practical demo session when we would be having it. So this is my grid view. It's something like this. It's having the ID, the properties, the number columns as we have discussed, and the spacing and other gravities that are available in the grid view. So all these things would be covered up in our practical demo session. So let's quickly open up our Android Studio and see how this grid view actually looks like. So guys, welcome back again. As we have already seen and studied about a grid view, how a grid view looks like, why do we use a grid view. So in this session we would be covering the concepts of basic grid view. As I've already told you that a basic grid view is quite similar to a list view. The only difference is that list view displays the elements in the vertical order. Grid view divides the screen into parallel parts which can be used to display the text as per our own convenience. Let's see a demo in which we are trying to see the English alphabets in the respective order. So before we begin, let's open up your Android Studio, and in the Android Studio, under your RES folder, you would be finding a layout folder. In the layout folder, click on activity_grid_view.xml that I have taken up. So this is my application, and this is my device screen. In the device screen, I have taken up a grid view. So here are my containers, which is a grid view. I drag and drop this grid view onto my screen. On dropping this grid view, let me see the properties that I have there. So what I've done is I have taken up the width, I have taken up the gravity, and then I have taken up the layout height, the layout width. I have a property named as number column. 5 elements in this grid view. So it means that in any row on a view, I won't be having more than 5 elements. See, 5, then 10. So these all would be in a multiple of 5. Now the next is gravity. As I've already told you, gravity is where you want your things to be, the position of the text. So what I've done is I've given it as the gravity as center. We can pass gravity all the points that we have discussed in the previous lectures. Now after this, I give the column width. I have explicitly mentioned that I want the column to be 50 dp in size. Any column which is measuring more than this or less than this won't be taken. This would be a fixed size for the column width. Also, you can even change the size of the column. You can even set it as auto underscore fit, which would be adjusting to the number of columns automatically and would be giving the best possible result. After this, we are having stretch mode. So stretch mode is a property similar to the property of a table in which you were expanding the column. Stretch column was a property. So here, after this property, we would be able to, see that what do we do of some unoccupied space if it is left on the screen. Let me try and make this numbers of column in a row as 6, and let me try and see what happens. Are you able to follow that there are 6 elements on the screen in each one, right? Now let me go to my Java class and see what I've done over there. So this is my Java class, which is grid view and grid view. I've taken a series of alphabets that from A to Z, and it's a string type of a value. And under this, what I've done, I've taken up the content view. I've called the content view that I have been mentioning over here, that the name of this content view was activity underscore grid underscore view. This XML file, right? Then I made the object of this grid view as grid view and find view by ID. This finding view by ID is a point in which we actually try to find the ID of a particular view that we have taken up in XML. This thing we have already discussed in our previous lectures. After this, I have taken up an array adapter. As you are aware that array adapter is a bridge that connects the UI components of the screen to the data sources. So here the UI component is a simple list item 1 which is having a normal text view, and the data sources is the string alphabets. So after this, I have set this grid view and I set an adapter on this grid view named as set adapter. So this is very clear. This is quite similar to the one we did in list view. Here what we did, we make the object of the grid view. Then here we actually took an array adapter, set the array adapter and set these alphabets into our list, which is single item, right? Then we have set this adapter into my grid view. After this, class is using a functionality of a set on item click listener. By on item click listener, I mean that if we are having an adapter, if we are having an array, or if we are having a view which is having multiple items in it, like it can be a spinner, it can be an autocomplete text view, it can be any view for that matter. So if we have to look for an event which is clicking on the items of that view, for that we need the on item click. This on item click is actually working on a parent on the adapter view, which we have taken it as parent, and the primary view which is calling is the V. We get the position and the ID which is being clicked. We won't be using it in the grid view as of now, but in the autocomplete text view, when we would be discussing about the entire views in detail, then we would be going into this listener in detail at that point in time. So here we wrote a simple toast and wrote it as toast.makeText get application context. We typecast the text view which is passed in the V and got its text. This was shown for short duration of time to the user. So this is a very basic example of a basic grid view. If you want to have a grid view which should have more than one column or it should have more than one field, for that we would be having a separate grid view, and it would be covered in the custom grid view section. So let's run our application on our devices and see how it works. So here's my application. It is having all the alphabet from 1 to 6. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G till F, and whichever position we are clicking, we are able to get a toast for that particular thing. If we try and make this as 5, the number of columns in a row as 5, we would be able to see 5 points over here. 5 alphabets over here. See, we are getting 5 results in a row in a grid view. So the size of all the columns in the grid view is 50 dp, and we are having 5 columns in each one. We can even have 4 or any number for that matter. See, we have got 4 results in this one, and each column is having 4 rows respectively. So that was all about the grid view. Now you can have a series in which you can have 10 numbers in each row and display accounting from 1 to 100 in this particular grid view. So thank you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned as we take you through the other views and take up the custom grid view in the upcoming sessions. Thank you.